Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us on this 12th episode of 20-something Live. Over the past few days, it's been incredible. The amount of emails that come in about this show is it's really an honor because when we started this, we didn't know what it was going to become, and we wanted to make sure that we were catering and curating an audience that was going to be of interest to you, and I'm so grateful for all the support that we've received and happy to bring you our 12th episode today with three more incredible young entrepreneurs. We're going to start off our show here in a second with one of our guests named Clayton, but first off, I want to introduce some of the others that are going to be joining us later in the show. We're going to have Berdellans, who is the Assistant Director of Marketing for OWSLA Worldwide, Ultra Music Festival, obviously one of the greatest, if not the greatest, electronic dance music festival in the world, and he is a genius. You'll hear more from him soon. And then we also have Danny Bell, the Director of Marketing and Talent Buyer for our music festival, who will be joining us later on the show and was also on my 20-something panel, EDM Biz, and always has a unique perspective on things. All right, and to the first guest of the show, my friend Clayton Blaha from the great city of Chicago, Seize Up, my very hometown. He started off for years at Biz 3, where he built an incredible roster in publicity, ranging from Skrillex to Chance the Rapper. I'm sure he'll talk more about his beginnings in a second. That led to him becoming a partner at OWSLA, and now he's a managing director of OWSLA Publishing as well. Clayton, welcome to the show, buddy. I can't quite hear you yet. You there? Hang on one second, guys.
No, that was my bad. I got it.
There he is. What's up, buddy?
Hey. What's up, Dean? How are you?
I'm clicking around as if I can do something about it, but I'm such a novice at the computer. Man, I'm good at the internet, just not the computer, you know?
This is actually my first Google Hangout ever.
Yeah, no. Albert's the genius over here in the corner on our chat. He's like, click the red microphone, dude. As if we know what to do.
Yeah, he's killing it.
Nice plaques you got behind you.
This is a, that wasn't a flex. I didn't mean to. That's the 5 million singles plaque for Sonny, for Skrillex.
And when did you get involved with Sonny?
I got involved with Sonny around his first national headlining tour after Scary Monsters and Night Sprites came out. And he was doing a lot of tickets, a whole lot of tickets. And he was selling a great deal of singles too, but a lot of people didn't know who he was outside of electronic music and outside of youth. Like youth culture, youth blogs, things like that. So
was that after the Dead Mouse run?
That was actually I got involved on the first show that we worked press for was the opening slot at Webster Hall for Dead Mouse. That was the first show that like Biz 3 was involved in, and that was when I worked under Catherine Frazier at Biz 3 and. She kind of brought it to me and gave me this incredible opportunity to start working for somebody that we thought would prove to be really huge, and thankfully we were right. So
did you find out about it, or did she find out about it?
2011.
Did you find out about it, or did she find out about it and show you?
She found out about it, actually. Atlantic Records brought it to us.
Cool.
Because my background traditionally, even moving into it at that time was rap music. I've listened to rap. And hip-hop for my entire life, and that's what I would consider, before I got so intimately involved in dance music, that was what I would consider my area of expertise, yeah.
It's interesting to see an organic relationship come from the record label perspective, because obviously the Biz 3, Skrillex, and OWSLA relationship, I mean, has led to the covers of Rolling Stone. Obviously, you guys have started a company now together. It's interesting to think that Atlantic was really at the pinnacle of setting that up, not setting it up, but in the introduction in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have happened. Maybe not. It might not have fallen into my lap, but I think at that point, Sonny's so independently minded and so just like all-seeing, and has so much knowledge within the music industry and exactly like the needs of certain artists at whatever points in their career that I think he ultimately would have outsourced for publicity anyway. At that point, I think it was just kind of a really convenient like intersection. Of all of our lives and careers, and it panned out really, really well, obviously.
Were you at that show at Webster?
I didn't go to that one. I went to his next show at Webster Hall, at which he was headlining, which is only like a few months later, I think. So, I mean, he went from 0 to 60.
Did you know right away that he would become the staple in dance music that he's become?
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% knew it the moment I met him.
Very cool. And so from that point forward, did it become your mission to eventually get more involved? At what point were there talks of starting a record label and the birth of the name OWSLA and then bringing that to the public?
Essentially, it was just like he and I have so much in common in reference to our backgrounds. We're around the same age, and we both grew up skateboarding and watching skate videos, listening to punk rock and rap music and things like that. The more and more we talked, the more it became evident that he was the kind of person that I really wanted to be involved with on a personal level as well as a professional level, just because I could identify immediately how hardworking he was and how dedicated to his craft he was, but also this thing that you can't really, that kind of transcends everything that he does, which is just this overwhelming amount of positivity and like personal investment in things. And if you are lucky enough to surround yourself with people like that, you'll probably be a happy person the rest of your life. So upon realizing that, that's when I really kind of just pulled him aside and was like, whatever you need me to do, like, let's do it.
Cool. And so talk about some of those things that you guys are doing together.
So we started OWSLA almost 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago now, and that will, I guess, our third anniversary will be in September. So we started that. We launched the careers of so many other people that are now thriving within electronic music that we're so proud to have been involved with in an early level, like people like Zed, Porter Robinson, Kill the Noise, all kinds of people that have gone on to have like really, really awesome careers and really build out the scene and just kind of demonstrate what you can do in the U.S. dance music scene right now. Since then, he moved me over a year ago now, about a year and a half ago, he moved me to Los Angeles to help him work on his record and build out other companies that he's since started. One of those has been OWSLA Publishing, which is really fully on its legs now. And we started kind of moving on about a year ago, and since then it's become a major focus of mine. And I'm working with 3 other people who are incredibly talented and also in the room with me to kind of build out just the publishing side of it, which is really, really fun for me because it allows me to work in all kinds of genres of music, which I really exceed at. Like, I listen to country music, I listen to electronic music, I listen to rap music, I listen to heavy metal, I listen to a lot of soca, I listen to just about everything. So working in publishing allows me to kind of put my hands in all kinds of things like that and get to work with people on a creative level, which I think is really something that's refreshing to me. I get to step away from the inbox a little bit and talk about music for a living, which is, you know, if everybody was so lucky, I feel really blessed.
Definitely. Have you guys had any signings that are so outside the box that you think people would be really shocked to know Skrillex or OWSLA was interested in?
I can't really divulge anything because we have a pretty small roster at this point. It'll be building as we go. My main focus right now on OWSLA Publishing is he can do everything from. He's just such an impressive human. If you've ever had the chance to meet him, you also probably you wouldn't know that he's like just such an immensely talented songwriter. From top lines to rap hooks to beats to full-on like banging pop songs, like he can do everything. And it's so inspiring working with him because he's one of those kind of people that just ignores genre and just makes music that feels good. And the placements are coming in. He's going to have a huge stake in changing the sound of pop music, I think, which is ultimately the goal of the publishing company.
And is he pursuing his own career? So I think I ran into him, was it 2 years ago on the Ultra Music Festival boat? Real tall guy, blonde hair, right?
Yeah. He's wild.
Everyone's asking who that guy is. He's just got that kind of vibe to him.
Exactly. He owns a room. He's always wearing Versace glasses and a cape, but he is focusing on, he has a song out with Grimes right now that's absolutely smashing. He's absolutely focusing on an artist career too. He's touring. He did a direct support tour with Pretty Lights last year. And he wants to do it all, and we're here to support him in doing so. We release his music too.
I think that publishing, it's one of those words like the word A&R where there's a lot of confusion sometimes about it for the audience, and you want to talk a little bit more about what it means to be a publisher, both on the creative front and also on the administration side?
Yeah, exactly. I think that in terms of publishing, I think first of all it's often confused with publicity for people that don't work in the industry, which is a gross misunderstanding. Yeah. So publishing is essentially we deal with the intellectual property of artists and musicians. So when you release a song through a label, there are two sides of it. There's the master recording, which is the actual thing that you hear, and that's owned by the record label. And there's also the idea of the song, the intellectual property, which is the publishing. So essentially what a publishing company does is it does a lot of things, but in this day and age, many publishing companies, boutiques such as us, kind of instigate and facilitate creativity amongst songwriters so that we can build a body of work that can either be released on our own label, in which case we get on the master side too, or we can give it to another label and a different artist who then we are obviously paid for the use of that song. A great example, I don't know, there's so many examples, but like Frank Ocean, for example, is a person who's doing a lot of writing for Brandy and had a pretty fruitful career as a songwriter. Without having any kind of public-facing identity. Then he broke up recording. A publisher is to provide people an environment, both professionally, as a publishing A&R is to provide people with an environment, both physically and professionally, where they're able to write the best songs that they can, and then alternately take those songs that they've written and put them into the hands of people who are going to make the biggest hit possible. And that's not always the case. I mean, we're not just out to write, the hugest songs in the world. Being that we're so closely associated with an artist and a label, for us it has to feel right, it has to feel organic, and it has to be reflective of our values within music. And I think that's another the reason I'm kind of in charge of the idea of the marketing side of the publishing company is that it's just there's a certain amount of perception of us, and I'm kind of in charge of directing that and making sure that it's in line and flush with the ethos of Sonny, myself, and our partners. And then on the admin side, basically, when you have a song out there that you've written and it's a major hit, there has to be somebody to go find out all the places it's played and all the times and also find places to sync it, and then go get the money from those people as well. So.
Cool. And are you guys self-administrating right now, or do you have a company that you set up that it all runs through?
No, it all runs through Cobalt at this point. And Cobalt is, if you're involved in the publishing industry, you're no stranger to them. They kind of a stranglehold on the admin side. They're so good at what they do. Enjoyed working with them quite a bit.
Yeah, for those that don't know out there, the first company that's really spent millions and millions of dollars on technology to administrate in a more seamless way than getting hundreds of pages of royalty statements and things like that. It just kind of all right there on the computer for you. So a lot of major publishing companies like Skrillex, like Dr. Luke, run their companies actually through Cobalt. So Clayton, a lot of people always want to know, for our participants on the show, how you got your start, because once you had the opportunity, obviously, work with somebody like Skrillex, you took it so far and were so entrepreneurial that you wound up becoming a partner of his, in a sense, which is really amazing. That's not always the way it goes. But how did you get that initial start with Catherine, and how did you prove yourself once on the job to show that you were capable of taking on a client like Skrillex?
For me, skateboarding has basically informed every major decision I've ever made in my life, and that sounds trivial at first.
Got to be passionate about something.
The first time exactly, and so I first heard electronic music. The first time I first heard rap music in a skate video, and that kind of led me to pursuing a career in both rap music and skateboarding, which doesn't make really any sense now that I look back on it. But I moved to San Francisco when I was really, really young, when I was 19. My dad bought me a one-way ticket, and I had a backpack and a skateboard, and I was just like, told myself I was going to somehow work in the music industry and or the skateboarding industry. And through that, I skateboarded. I got some internships in record labels. I ended up working in a music studio that I really hated. I worked in a record store for a little bit, and I started DJing. And the more I started DJing, the more I kind of fell in love with house music and break beats, things like that, just because they're so much more fun to spin than hip-hop. And I was in San Francisco doing my thing, waiting tables, playing out probably 5 nights a week, things like that, promoting, just being kind of a 20-something dirtbag, which was great. And that was when I was about 22 to 25. And when I was 25, my whole personal life just kind of fell apart, as it tends to do when you hit 25, or around that age, just quarter life crisis. And I made a lot of money on one party, and I decided that I was going to take that money and invest it essentially, and invest it in my career and somehow make more money with it. So I bought a ticket to South by Southwest. I bought a ticket to Austin, and I was like, through skateboarding, and I had run into people that worked for Thrasher magazine. This is prior to this. And I'd started writing for Thrasher. I'd started writing about rap music for the biggest skateboard magazine in America. And I started getting press releases from Catherine, who was running an independent PR company called Biz3. And I kind of figured that the people writing the press releases were making more money than I was making for writing about the music. And I decided that when I bought my ticket to South by, that I was going to find Catherine and like make her give me a job. And if you've ever been to South by Southwest, you know that's completely impossible to find somebody. I was trying to follow her on Twitter. This is before she had a Twitter. I was going to all the events that her artists were playing and like looking for her, and it didn't work at all. And I left early that year. That was 2010. I left South by like really frustrated and upset and sad. And then in the airport line, in the security line at the airport, I actually ran into her assistant, or her partner now, this woman Dana. And I was like, hi, I write for Thrasher. I think we've spoken over email. And she was like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. This is Catherine. And then Catherine was just there. And I was like, hi, I'm Clayton. I'll do anything to work for you. I really have nothing going on in my life, and I just need to make a huge change. And she was like, cool, let's have lunch. And she bought me lunch in the Austin airport. And 3 weeks later, I moved into her house. I still left everything I owned in San Francisco. I moved to her house in Chicago, where I'd never been before and didn't know anybody. She taught me how to change diapers the first night I was there, and I lived in the office for about a month, or no, for actually 2 months, while I kind of learned the ropes. And she taught me how to be a publicist, and I was really bad at it. And then she was like, maybe you shouldn't be a publicist, and I was like, you're never going to get rid of me, so we better figure this out. And then I met Sonny, and everything just kind of fell into place. And there's a lot of 13-hour days, 15-hour days ever since, like now. I'll probably do one today. But it's not really work when it's your passion and something you enjoy, and you can actually see it building towards something that's really awesome that gives people joy. So
3 years later, you still love skateboarding, you're still in the music business, and you're an expert at changing diapers.
Yep, that's about it.
So you actually lived in the office. This woman that you didn't know.
Yeah.
This was her home. This was her home too, or no? This was just her office.
It was the home office. She lived upstairs, and then there was a large office with one bedroom where artists would come and stay in Chicago, and that was my house for 2 months.
Bold, very bold. Cool. I think it's a valuable lesson when you can seek opportunity, you attracted it, and you were willing to move across the country for it. And now, obviously, you moved again when Sonny called upon you to run with OWSLA. So congratulations on everything you have going, and thanks for joining us here on 20-something.
Thanks, dude. You too. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, of course. All right, brother. Thanks.
Bye.
See ya. All right, guys. I wanted to do something a little bit different for the book of the week this week. Everybody watching obviously wants to learn about the music industry, and I'm sure a lot of you already subscribe to the Left Sets letter. But if you don't, when I think of the book of the week, it's really about what you're reading that's important. And I think that Bob Lefsetz really is somebody that understands the industry very well, and I recommend you go to his website and subscribe to his letter. That's LEFSESTZ, and I promise you that you will be thoroughly entertained each and every day. And now on to our next guest of the day, the one, the only, the EDM snob, former mystery. Now he's coming out. He came out a while ago, but he's coming out for the first time on our show. Here he is, live and via the live stream, the marketing director for Ultra Music Festival, Albert Berdellans. What's up, buddy?
Hey, man. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
That's assistant marketing director. Assistant
marketing director. I try to talk you up more, man. You can't.
No.
It's all good.
I'm patient.
Cool. Thank you for correcting me. So what's going on?
Hold on. Before we start, I have a small disclaimer. I have this whole paragraph I was supposed to read, but let me just say that my views are my own and do not reflect those of my employers, owners, or any collaborators of Ultra Music Festival. Thanks. Cool.
With all the guests that we've had on this show, I can't believe that you're the first that has had to read that. I think a lot of people do this rogue. I like that you go about it professionally, and here we are.
Well, I value my life. You know my boss, so.
I'm grateful to have you on the show, Albert, because I think you're one of the smartest young people that I know. And I know we first talked about doing it, you were a little unsure, and now here you are. And there's a lot of things I want to dive into with you, and I guess we're going to start at your beginning, but then I really want to focus on your opinion on dance music culture, because I think you have a better sense of it than a lot of people, and I think our audience would love to hear about it. But I want to start with where you started, because to me it was something as simple as a Twitter account. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but was that the beginning of your career, creating this Twitter account, EDM Snob, and people not knowing who you were and then kind of showcasing your ability to market yourself?
Yeah, so let me go back a little bit, because
Sure.
I think you'd agree that overnight successes take years. And that's kind of what happened here. I first got into electronic music when I was very young. I started going to raves when I was 15, 16. Back then, raves were pretty sketchy. Electronic music wasn't like this cool thing in concerts. This was like 2005, and they were either illegal in warehouses or in really rundown clubs, and all ages parties, pay $20, see local DJs, all that stuff. And it wasn't like a big corporate thing yet, and so it was kind of sketchy, and it attracted a bit of a rough crowd. So anyway, I went off to college after doing that. I got into the whole fraternity scene, and I was a promoter. Ended up having a promo company. I was at the University of Florida at the time, studying statistics and philosophy. And then after that, I really didn't know what I was going to do. I thought about law school. My family wanted me to do this, and I wanted to do electronic music. And telling your father that you want to be a promoter for a living is sometimes a little tough, especially when you come from a strict, ambitious household like I do. And then I was in Miami, studying market research at Florida International University, which is great for business. And at the same time, after I had left absolutely everything, was in Miami again, I had to have serious mouth surgery. My airway was, there were some issues, and I had to have surgery on my jaw. And then I had braces on at 22. That was exciting. And I was pretty low. A lot of that stuff takes a toll on your self-esteem. And I was just kind of looking for an outlet for some of that. So I decided to start a blog about electronic music, and it was great. It blew up way more than I ever thought it would be. Looking back, it was pretty terrible. Design was bad, and like the writing was, I was trying too hard, and all that stuff. But it had original content, and I really cared about what I was writing about, and I think that shone through. And eventually, it just was more and more successful with every story. And eventually I attracted attention. I had a unique way of how I wanted to market it. I didn't really know it would work at the time. But eventually I attracted attention of a ton of people, artists, promoters, people in the industry, whatever. People couldn't stop talking about it. So that's how I got my first audience with the owners at OWSLA.
And talk to us about the role of the Twitter account in connection with the blog. Because that was how, I think that's when a lot of people, at least for me, I wasn't as in tune with the blog as I probably should have been. And then the Twitter account's what caught me, because like, who's this guy? No one really knew. And then I knew, and a lot of people didn't know. And you'd be spread out there, making things happen and leaking shit like you do. And it was kind of cool to see. I felt like I knew somebody that was, people listened to you, Albert, and that was kind of really fascinating to me.
It was really, really strange, because no one before or since really took the blog thing and turned it into some major persona and then blew up like a little mini celebrity. It never happened before. And the reason I think it happened is because of the anonymous aspect. No one knew who it was. Everyone was pointing fingers everywhere, wild accusations, speculation, all this stuff. The reason that it was anonymous was because I didn't want to put a face to it, because I wanted it to represent everybody. I wanted people to hear their own voice when they read the blog. I wanted people to project themselves into that persona. And I think that a lot of people responded to that. I had no idea it would be so successful at the time, but here we are.
And why do you think that attracted the owners of OWSLA Music Festival?
Well, they it's funny. My initial shot, and we'll get into this, I assume, a little bit more, but at first they were very wary. Because I had been leaking stuff, and that's probably bad if you want someone to work for you that they have a reputation for leaking stuff. So they kept me at a very, very safe distance at first. The first job I had was, okay, we're going to pay you part-time for 10 hours a week. You're a kid in grad school. Just run the Twitter account. We need someone to run the Twitter account, and you did a good job running yours and building up a following. So yeah, do that. And slowly but surely, I got more and more responsibility and became more involved with the marketing that was going on. And you know, ever since then, it's just been a slow but steady pace of being more and more involved and being more involved in decision making. And it's very, very flattering, you know, for someone my age. And you know, I don't really feel qualified sometimes to make the decisions that I make, but you know, someone has to do it.
Yeah, but you have a lot of self-education, I feel like. You know, well, a lot of people, they go to grad school, there's not really a way that they use it, but you always seem to apply your education into what you do. Do you have any examples of that you think would be good for the audience to understand what it means to take your education really by the horns?
Oh, yeah. I think that's a very common issue that people have professionally, is like they spent all this time in school and they studied whatever it was, whether they cared about it or not, because it would you know, create a living. And I never did that. The stuff I studied was very general. It was math, and it was philosophy, and it was thinking. And that's really all I learned. I didn't learn like all these different things, because I figured that if I needed to learn a specific skill, all that information was available, and I could do that. And I have a ravenous appetite for information. I learn as much as I can. I think that's what attracted me so much to my field of study, is because it involves a lot of reading and analysis and looking at things and thinking about things very carefully. But to give you an example, one of the things that I do is I work on our data marketing. I use data as much as we can gather, and I try and use it in the most accurate possible way to lead us down the right path that the business should go down. And that can be difficult, because on the one hand, you have to have information to interpret. On the other hand, you need to know how to interpret it effectively without creating any false positives or taking people, you know, towards a false conclusion, because your owners are relying on you to give them good information. So it's very important to kind of have an ear and an eye for what matters and what doesn't, in specifically my role.
Definitely. And so moving forward into your current views, obviously as you enter this role of Assistant Marketing Director at OWSLA, you kept the Twitter account alive. Mm-hmm. So what is your current standpoint on where the genre is today?
Oh, I think it's great. I really, really do. It's obviously not the same as it was. And a lot of people say, oh, there's so much bad music being produced, it's so cheesy, and yes, that's true. But that's just because there's more music being produced. See, everything falls into a bell curve. This is classic central limit theorem. Everything is a bell curve. So if there's a larger total volume of music being produced, that means that there's more bad stuff, yeah, but there's also more good stuff, because there's more stuff in general. And no matter what, some of it's going to be great, tons of it is going to be okay, some of it's going to be really bad. You know, everything, the law of averages applies to everything, especially creative industries. It's all subjective anyway. You know, if people are finding music that they can enjoy, then great.
How's it going to evolve, though? Sometimes I feel like, we talked about it a little bit on our panel at EDM Biz, where it's like, I feel like the festivals are innovating faster than the artists. Is that true? What does that mean for the
What do you mean by that? What do you mean innovating faster?
I feel like Ultra Music Festival, we're about to have Danny on a little bit with Hard, EDC, which we got to experience a couple weeks ago. I just feel like the festivals can make decisions based on business, right? And it's almost as if they have more on the line. And the artists are expected to come because they're paid to come. And when you're getting a six-figure paycheck and playing a main stage, you know, like, am I wrong for expecting more from DJ performances than two turntables and somebody throwing their hands up? I realize it's an art. I'm not questioning the art. I just think that you guys are the ones pushing it forward, new stage designs and new ways to kind of reach the consumer. I mean, obviously the artist music is reaching the consumer in such a major way, and I don't want to undermine that either. I just feel like the festivals are really the ones that are taking this forward and driving the experience sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, look, of course, because we ask for a lot more from the consumer, so the consumer expects a lot more value in return. When's the last time someone's favorite artist asked them for $400? Never. You could see an artist 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times and not pay that much money. That's the whole point, is that you're getting a all-you-can-eat buffet of all the music that is out there, or at least is curated for that specific festival for a certain price. And artists have a unique position in that, because the customer, who is an artist's real customer? In this day and age that most of your money comes from touring, isn't the promoter really an artist's number one customer rather than the fans? Of course, the fans need to want to see the artist, and there needs to be demand. But here, let me say this: I don't think that the genre is dying at all. I think it's more alive than it ever has, and I'll defend that. There's a couple issues that people bring up when they make this argument. First issue is, oh, people are playing the same sets all the time. There's no creativity. I hear the same music. Blah 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 blah. And I always tell them, like, look, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If people are having a good time, why would you just need to re-engineer the whole thing? No one goes to a play and says, oh, look at that actor. He's not even reading the crowd. Like, what the hell? He's just saying the lines that were... It's ridiculous. If a show appeals to the audience, that's its only job. People don't go there to hear something new. They go there to hear what they expect to hear. That's the whole point. Otherwise, they would buy tickets to, they would go see someone different all the time. And this is very interesting. This goes into how data goes into these types of decisions. There's an effect that I think I've discovered called the sampler effect. And with artists, people hear an artist, they fall in love, and then they want to see that artist again. But with festivals, it's different. With festivals, people go to the show, they enjoy the festival, they have the time of their life, and then they say, okay, now I need to go to the others. It's one of the very few products that occurs. Most people buy a product for the first time. If they enjoy it, they use it forever. But with festivals, there's this sampler effect where people want to explore different ones all the time. So it's very challenging to try and reconcile that with how you market your product as a music festival. Interesting.
And you're one of the most pure dance music fans I've met that's our age. Because a lot of the guys that are in this business, they've been in it for 10, 20 years. You're a huge fan of the artist. You have personal relationships with a lot of these guys. Talk to us about someone that you feel like either has innovated in a way or just continues to bring the genre forward in a way that you think is really positive, and you think somebody who's just doing it right. I think a lot of people that watch 20-something are interested in artists and the growth of brands in any genre, not just electronic dance music, but talk to us about who's a great case study of somebody doing it right.
Well, I mean, the most classic example is Tiesto, and people like groan when you say that. They're like, oh, I'm so tired of hearing about Tiesto. I can't stand this guy over and over again. But he's consistently on top of the game, has been for 20 years. That is unheard of. Never happens. The guy played trance. He was the most legendary, trance producer of the time. Then he's into house, and he made some amazing albums right before the boom, and a lot of people who are fans now haven't even heard those. And now into like these hard style drops and all this stuff, and he plays trap. He just kills it. He's always on top of it. The people he brings up, he just totally kills it. The most hyped example right now is Porter Robinson. He specifically made an album countering his earlier stuff. He just wants to make beautiful music, and I think that's great. But I think that maybe people underestimate how much artists innovate year after year. They really, really do. And they're cognizant of the fact that they have to come out with new, exciting things that aren't exactly what they did before, but aren't so different that they alienate their fans. And Diplo said, this really well. He said, if you make exactly what your fans expect you to make, you're not an artist, you're a CD player. And I think that's really cool. I think that style of innovation is going to be really compelling.
Do you think it's hard to innovate?
Oh,
today with so much more? Yeah. Do you think it's harder, though, than it was a few years ago?
I just think it's happening more often. Things definitely evolve more quickly. If you listen to the music, we're getting questions apparently on the hashtag.
Oh, I'll ask it in a second.
Oh, okay. So they're really coming in. So anyway. I think that innovation occurs as much as it needs to occur. If people feel stale, if you feel stale as an artist, you're compelled to make something different. Some artists really feel like they can't stand playing the music. And I was talking to Tommy Sunshine about this at EDC Vegas, and he said that he had a conversation with Calvin Harris where Calvin was just like destroyed. He's just like, I can't work like this, playing 300 shows a year, flying all the time, never home, just playing the same stuff, and like eventually you like develop a hatred for like seeing the same fans go nuts for the same tracks over and over and over and over again.
So what's his solution? Did he talk about it at all?
I mean, the solution is take the money and make enough money doing that to get comfortable enough to where you can do whatever you want. And that you reach the Daft Punk scenario. They don't care about making money or touring or whatever. They want to be Mozart. They don't care. They don't want to be the Beatles. They want to be Mozart.
Interesting. Okay, the question from Max. Hey, EDM snob, is it hard being the snob and working for Ultra at the same time?
Oh yeah, definitely. I've definitely had to leave the whole snob persona behind. It was a really cool idea. I might revive some of the things that I was doing. I wanted to have some sort of industry blog, but I'm getting to the point where I'm getting too deep to really talk about anything interesting. There's a million things I can't talk about, and I could never blog effectively. And at the same time, it's really positive too. That's the negative, but there's positive because I still feel strongly about all the same things I felt strongly about when I was blogging. I just can actually do something about it now, and it's about time, I think, for me to stop talking about it and start really making a difference. Because very few people get the shot, and since I'm lucky enough to have the shot, I think I should take advantage as much as I can.
Yeah, your voice is definitely felt in other ways by choosing, like a theme song to a trailer or something like that, or at least putting your voice forward for it. I think that people, a lot of the artists you probably would have got behind in one way, now you can do through another, and you have this huge platform in Ultra Music Festival. And let's talk about that for a second. What do you think has been your greatest accomplishment, not personally, but I guess for the company that you've provided since you joined the company?
Oh, definitely data-oriented decision-making. Because, this industry in particular, and Ultras actually was better at this than most, but they still had room for improvement. But most people in this industry operate on like this gut, like, oh, I think this, and oh, I think that, and like both opinions are equally valid. It's like ridiculous. Like there's no like, okay, well, let's find out what the right answer is, instead of having this personality battle at the table and then doing whoever the person that has the most office, political capital wants to do. That's ridiculous. There's so many decisions, routine decisions, where you actually can find an answer. And if you can't find an answer to some of these problems, you either don't care or you don't know the methodology. And luckily, I've been able to improve a ton of the decisions that we make by letting the decision makers have data that guides them. It's never going to tell you the whole answer because you can't predict the future with past data, but you can at least fill in a lot of the blanks. And I definitely think that's been a major improvement, and I think it'll show.
And what kind of decisions do they make based on that data?
Well, the most interesting ones I can't really talk about.
That's okay.
But for instance, how long should a movie be? Or what resolution should you use for various images? What types of colors should happen? What size should the sign be? What fonts do you use? Where do you position certain things for maximum impact? All these things are massively improved by comprehensive data-based decision making.
So EDM snob, the Billy Bean of EDM.
The who?
Billy Bean? That's his
Never
name,
heard
right?
of him.
He's the guy with the Oakland Athletics that
the baseball statistician.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, sports was revolutionized by that, and I think that music, it's way overdue for that type of analysis.
Cool. Let's take one more question from the audience before we let you go, Albert. Niramo wants to know, was there a difficult time where you thought that electronic music and promoting wasn't the way to go in life?
Oh, man. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, before you get, and this is a very common experience that a ton of people are going through, before you get that first shot, it's almost impossible to get your foot in the door of this industry. It really is. And I think one of the major issues that we've had is a massive shortage of women in the industry. I think it's honestly a travesty, and I think we're all worse off because of it. But in general, it's impossible to get into the industry. And before you ever get that first shot, you're like, my God, how many times am I going to try and chase my way in? Like, how, I should go do something else because, like, I need to have some sort of fallback plan for my life. I can't roll the dice on getting into this exclusive club.
Makes sense. Cool, cool. Albert, thank you so much for joining us on 20 Something Live. I feel blessed to have you as a friend, and thank you so much for everything you've done for me and continuing to provide knowledge to everybody out there.
Always a pleasure, Jake. Take care.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, moving on to our last guest of the day, my good friend from right down the street here, Danny Bell, the Director of Marketing and Talent Buyer for Hard Music Festival. What's up, Danny?
What's good?
How are you? Oh, he's in the office, posters galore.
Yeah, that's right. I'm actually in Gary's office. He's out of town, so I decided to take it over for him. See all the sweet posters and pictures in the back.
Is that behind you? Is that the Skrillex show?
Yeah, that's Skrillex's main stage, Hard Summer 2012. Yeah, and then right above it is that one stage shot from I think that's that's from Day of the Dead last year at the park. Above it. Yeah, we're very sentimental over at Hard. Very family oriented. We love pictures of our past events.
Why not? Everywhere. As long as they go well, bring it on. Put it up on the wall. Kudos to you. So you guys are preparing for a festival. It's coming up here in a few weeks, right?
Yes, Hard Summer is 3.5 weeks away, which is crazy. It always comes up really quickly. This actually is definitely the longest. The first half of the year is always very long because, like I said, it is 8 months until our first festival, but then we do Day of the Dead 3 months after Hard Summer. And so once we get to this point of the year, the rest of the year goes by extremely quickly. So honestly, 2014 is pretty much over for me right now, and we haven't really started our big festivals yet, but we're definitely getting into crunch mode right now and getting all the final details sorted out and making festival guides, all this other fun stuff, and yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about what goes in 3 weeks out for throwing a festival, or at least from your job perspective.
Well, it's a year-long job. Once we get to about 3 weeks out, we actually want to be finishing up everything. I always say my work is actually done 2 weeks before Hard Summer, because I do all the marketing and the talent buying. I like having a hand in the production stuff, but we have an unbelievable production team who has tons and tons of years of experience, and so it's actually great that they handle all of that while I just get to focus on marketing and booking. And the good thing is, once we're 2 weeks out of Hard Summer, I'm focusing on the next event. So when everyone else is getting ready for Hard Summer and grinding last minute, I'm actually working on plotting out the Day of the Dead launch plan and working on finishing up that lineup. So when we get to Hard Summer, it's kind of like I'm in a completely different mindset. But I mean, like I said, it's a year-long process, and the production team is a big aspect from it. Like they have to do everything from city relations, from dealing with the governor and the mayor and the police department, the Alcoholic Beverage Commission. Lots of different engineers and tons of people, and like that process is an ongoing process and never starts. I mean, this is a new venue this year, and I'm pretty sure they've been working on securing the new venue and getting everything in place for over 2 years now, if you have an idea like that. So there is a production office where we have 40 people working around the clock, getting all the final details together, getting make sure all the stages are going to be set up, everything is engineered properly, our traffic plan is all set, and advancing with all the artists. And then there's our office here where I'm still overseeing the marketing, coming up with the plan to how to get all the important information out to our fans, all the security info, travel info, all of that. And then that's really it. I mean, we have a couple more team members who everyone has a large role with what we do, especially with our very small core team. But like I said, at this point, it's pretty much smooth sailing.
And you show up to every meeting with the mayor in your New York Knicks hat, right?
No, I do not personally go. I wish I did, though, in LA. I never thought about that, but yeah, if I ever meet with the mayor, I'm definitely showing up in my New York Knicks hat. First thing I'm doing, putting it on the table.
Great stuff. Right. So, you're in a powerful position. I mean, being a talent buyer, that means you get to spend the money and choose the acts that you believe people want to go and see. At what point, after working with Hard, did Gary give you the privilege of kind of putting together your own lineup that you believed would sell these tickets and sort of curating the set times and things like that? And has it set in for you that you, in a major market like LA, where Hard takes place, you have this ability to really forecast success across the entire nation and sometimes across the globe for an artist?
Well, first off, I want to make it very clear that all of the curation and the booking is it's definitely a collaboration between me and Gary, where at the end of the day, because Gary is the boss, he does have the final say. Like I will never ever go out of my way and place an offer or do something without him being on the same page and wanting to do it as well. And then at the same time, he also likes to get my opinion. I would say 98% of the time. There are some times where I disagree with him, where he's just tells me I know what I'm doing, which he absolutely does 1,000,000% of the time. But it's a collaboration, and the really cool thing about it too is I'm just a music fan all and through. I love electronic music, but I love all types of music. I actually saw Kiss and Def Leppard last night, which was awesome, and Queen last week, and I love all music. I just love listening to anything I can get my hands on. I give everything a shot, and I just love the innovative, forward-thinking new music. Like all these, I love finding new artists and watching them grow and watching sounds, really develop. I mean, Flume is a perfect example of someone who I started listening to about 3-4 years ago. I thought was amazing, and I was joking in the office saying, wouldn't it be great if one day people in the U.S. would like this guy? And here we are 4 years later, and this sound that is so different than anything else you've really heard is, selling close to 10,000 tickets per market. And so my role within the whole booking, within the booking collaboration between me and Gary is really finding the new talent. Having my ear to the ground, being out all the time, being very interested in all the new sounds, and just really kind of picking and choosing which sounds and which artists we really like that we want to showcase and introduce to our fan base, and be able to put on a bill with some of these massive artists. Like the other thing is like our goal is for people to come to our festival and leave talking about the 10 amazing shows they saw. Hopefully they know half of them, maybe if they only knew one of them before, but no matter what, we want everyone who comes to Heart to leave the festival having found 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe even 5 or 6 new artists that they absolutely love. It's a pretty cool place to be in. That was pretty much what your question was. Has it hit me? I mean, this is what I've always wanted to do. It's pretty awesome. Like my doodle in high school was coming up with mock festival lineup, so the fact that I get paid to do it now and can actually spend money to make it happen is pretty cool. So I just love it. It's not like a powerful position or anything around that. It's just I just get to do what I love every day. It's pretty awesome.
So when you were in high school, you had this vision in your head, and you said that wasn't a metaphor, right? You literally were doodling mock festival lineups?
Yeah, I was the worst classroom student there was. I had horrible ADD. I could not, if I was not into something, I just could not pay attention. I had some unbelievable doodles though. I had some really cool geometric stuff. Like I got really detailed with it, and then I actually it happened actually for my senior year in high school. Rage Against the Machine came back and played Coachella. My 18th birthday present from my mom was a ticket to Coachella, a tent, and a plane ticket. And she said, go have fun. And it was awesome. After that weekend, that changed my life. Like I said, this is what I want to do. I mean, it's unbelievable. You got to go to this environment where you have an amazing vacation, and you get to see all your favorite artists and learn about a ton of great new artists, people who you would have never even thought about seeing before unless you were put in that scenario. And it was just amazing. And then so after that, I came back. And the next week I found myself doodling in my notebook, coming up with different mock lineups and trying to figure out how much the artist actually got paid and how to make it all work like that. I mean, before
Did you ever throw your own shows?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I had a band in high school and in middle school, and the way we got shows where, I would get a room, I would book a night at the Knitting Factory, and then book bigger bands who I would want to bring in a crowd to see my band. I had no idea that's what a promoter really did, but that's just what I did because I wanted people to see us play. I wanted to perform for people because it was fun. I did that probably about 6 or 7 times when I was in high school. I also put on a bunch of concerts for the Frock Club, which was, I went to Fieldston, was the high school. It was called Fieldston Rock Radio. So we were able to put on a concert every year with just the high school bands, and that was really fun as well. And I just loved it right from the very beginning, all of the organizational aspects of it, and all the planning, all the flow of the bands, yeah, everything like that. It's just something I've been doing since I was in 8th grade.
Do you feel like that vision has been the greatest reason for your success, or how else did you go about attracting such an incredible position for yourself?
I mean, it definitely led to it because I have been doing this for a long time. I mean, not like what I was doing in high school. Yes, it was cool. It was being a promoter, but it's nothing compared to what the real thing is. I mean, I wasn't risking any money. And when it comes down to it, being a promoter, I like to say, is informed gambling. Because, you know, you really love an act and you want them to perform a show, so you then work with the agent and the team saying, I think you guys could sell X amount of tickets at X amount of money in this market on this date. And then the promoter puts up the money. The artist doesn't really have a risk. They're getting paid the guarantee no matter what, but the promoter could lose a lot of money. Now, a festival is the same thing because, you know, instead of it just being a single act, you're now taking 100 acts and saying, I think this many people will come see this group of 100 acts for this amount of money on this weekend. And, you know, the upsides are good, but the downsides can be astronomical, and that's why so many festivals come and go so quickly. But, you know, it definitely had something to do with what I've done growing up. But it was also, it's also a scenario where I was in the right place at the right time. You know, when I came out to college at USC, I did not like electronic music. I was like, what is this? I didn't get it. I didn't really like it that much. And that's when Daft Punk was booming, absolutely booming. And that's all anyone can talk about in Southern California. And I came out from New York City to USC for school. While I was there, my first month within college, my buddy from Prague told me he had to play me this electronic music because he was always, you know, listening to all the hip-hop I liked. He said, you have to try this out. You'll like it. And he played me Boys Noise, and he played me Pendulum, and he played me Justice.
Oh, yeah.
And those are the three. And it was cool. I was like, all right, you know, cool.
Let's make that the song of the day here. Pendulum and Coder, for those that haven't listened to it. It reminds me of like Phil Collins meets dance music. I freaking love that song. I can't believe it's the last song on their album. That song's freaking beautiful.
The Phil Collins of dance music, that's amazing. I don't think anyone other than you right there will ever refer to Pendulum as the Phil Collins of dance music.
No, but in Coder though, it has this like, it's like Lion King meets EDM. It's perfect.
It's amazing. I gotta listen to it when we get off of this again.
Yeah, do it.
But anyway, you know, I was introduced to electronic music then. Then I saw Daft Punk at Vegas Festival, and I got it. I said, this is awesome. Totally cool. And then the very next year, there was Hard across the street from USC. Hard Haunted Mansion was the show. That was what all the cool kids were doing on Halloween at USC. If you were cool, you were going. If you weren't that cool, if you were kind of afraid of the whole rave electronic music scene because it was still new, you didn't go. So it was one of those kind of taboos. And I always say, I'll compare it in a way to like what I think makes a great rock singer, which is someone that makes you feel uncomfortable at first, but they're so good that they just have that kind of ability to pull you in and drag you in for it, and then you're just obsessed and you can't get rid of it. And that's what I think dance music was, because it was kind of scary and it was taboo. But this explosion just happened right away. It started there, then all these kids started going to all these shows all the time. I started going to them, I started liking it, and then I ended up interning at a management company called Monotone. And within the Monotone offices, there was a little office in the back corner of this company called Heart that I knew all about. I did, but they, you know, I acted like, oh, cool, like, nice to meet you.
So you didn't know when you started with Monotone that Hard was going to be there. Once they told you that it was Hard, your eyes, you kind of, at that moment, knew that you were going to find a way to get on.
To be very honest, I wanted to work with Monotone on Jack White and Vampire Weekend and stuff like that. But the kid who was in charge of the interns was not a very nice. He was very controlling. He wasn't very nice to the interns. So I couldn't really do anything. So I was bored. Funny enough, that guy's actually a very good friend of mine today who I really respect. And because of him not giving me any work, I got bored and started walking around the office, and I met Gary and started bonding with him. And just from that's kind of how everything unfolded. I mean, here I am. This is now over 4 years after I met him, and I'm still here and loving it, and we're still growing. But, you know, it really all kind of happened by accident. Like I said, it was right place, right time, being in LA, beginning of Hard, during the Daft Punk explosion, and then meeting Gary. And to be honest, you know, we've wanted to really take Hard big, and we want to make it as big as we possibly can. But I think where we're at right now, and we're about to have a sold-out Hard Summer show. We're going to be sold out very soon. Thank you. But I don't think we ever thought booking the type of music that we like to book, and this whole scene would get this big. And so it's pretty just amazing that we're just able to continue to execute and be confident and stick to our guns and our whole game plan and just, allow it to grow year after year. It's pretty amazing.
Let's talk about that Daft Punk era for a second, because you got to see them the first time. And was it always that kind of mystique at that level?
I think Daft Punk were the ones who really broke through in the mainstream for electronic music. And it was, obviously it all started from the Kanye West single. As much as I love Daft Punk, as much as their albums are amazing, it's just funny. If Gary hears this, he's going to make so much fun of me because his dad kept on telling him this, and Gary doesn't want to believe it. But I'm telling you, if it wasn't for Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, or if it wasn't for Kanye West Stronger, none of these kids would have been introduced to it. Then people heard the original and just exploded. It was one of those things that we just need that little gateway into it, and then it just took off. And everyone all of a sudden knew Daft Punk. They went from people who no one knew to selling out arenas across the country overnight. And that show was a spectacle. It was unlike anything I've ever seen. Just the way the whole set was set up with them in their space masks and their outfits, and the way the whole show was was timed, and the way it just evolved from the first second to the end of the 2-hour show was unbelievable. I've just never seen anything that intricate and just well thought out and amazing. And I really think that is what that had a large part of the whole, the beginning of that whole Daft Punk era and the beginning of the electronic music explosion in America.
What are your thoughts on them not having toured since this last album?
As a promoter, I'm bummed because I would love to do a show with them. I'd love to see them again as a fan.
You're the only promoter in the country or in the world thinking that. So.
I know, totally. But honestly, as an artist, I think it's brilliant. It was 10 years between tours before. Everyone's got to remember that. It was 1997 was the tour they did before the 2006-2007 Alive tour. I've always said too, for a while, like I hate saying this, and I'm not gonna regret saying this, but I hope I'm wrong, and I think I will be wrong. But I do think Daft Punk will have started and also ended the electronic music boom in the U.S. I think the next time they tour, they're going to do something so creative and take things to a whole nother level that kind of makes electronic music viewed in the eyes of older generations and older adults as kind of, in a way, real music. And what I mean by that is just, to people like my mom and my dad and even my grandparents, people they don't understand what it is, and that's honestly part of the appeal to electronic music to the young kids right now, that it is their own. It's just like what rock and roll was in the 60s and what rap was in the early 90s. But when it's the new, hot, fresh thing, I feel like there is a beginning and an end to it, and it's when the next kind of wave comes in. And we'll see if Daft Punk comes out and does this tour with tons of musicians with them. If they do some crazy elaborate production, who knows? They could even do a show where it's just like the two of them in a room in a museum for 50 people every night for a full year, and that's the tour. But whatever it is, it's going to be something innovative, and I just think it's all very strategic and very well planned out. I hope they come back. I think everyone would love to see them.
You mentioned your parents and your grandparents there for a second in closing. I just want to know, were they always supportive of what you did? Did they understand what hard was and the place that it would have in culture and how you were actually creating a sustainable means for yourself?
I've been very lucky to have. I've had possibly the most supportive family possible. They didn't, get electronic music at first, but then again, I didn't either. It took time to really develop it, to develop, my taste and really understanding of the genre, and they're still working on it. They're definitely more excited about it now. They think it's cool when they read about Skrillex in the newspaper or anywhere else, and tons of other people who they know are on our shows. But I've been lucky because I grew up in an entertainment family. My mom and my dad both worked on Broadway. My mom still works on Broadway. But yeah, whatever I've wanted to do, they've always supported me 100%, as long as I was passionate about it and really enjoyed it. And I told them from the beginning when I started working, for Hard, I said, this is the next big thing. You're going to see this is the This is like what I just said. This is the rock and roll of the '60s. What that was in the '60s, this is what is for the current generation of kids right now and in the teens. And I was like, just watch it blow up, and this is fun, and I get to do what I love, which is book music festivals. And they've been nothing but supportive, and there's been a lot of ups and downs because it's we were a startup and kind of a small company before Live Nation, and that's never easy. But it's been great. Yeah, they could not have been any more supportive.
Cool. Albert Berdellans had to jump back in to say that you, sir, are 1,000% right about the Kanye West song, and the data supports that. And he says, okay, bye. And so with that, Danny, thank you so much for joining me on 20-something Live. Always a pleasure. I look forward to something we do together.
Yeah,
all right.
Totally. Talk to you soon.
Take it easy. All right, everybody, that about wraps it here for 20-something Live. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. I will see you soon.